Hello, I'm Dick TERMES. Good to see you. We're going to do a little bit of a workshop on perspective today. So I wanted to first of all introduce myself to you. I brought along one of my thermospheres and just wanted to show you what kinds of work I do that uses this 6-point perspective system. We're not going to be going this far with the perspective today. We're going to be doing a 2-point, which is like 1/4 of this around the middle. But most of my work, and I've been painting on spheres like this for over 50 years, which is a long time. But you can see it's a pretty intriguing thing to do because you can, with the sphere, you can capture everything above you. I'll kind of spin it around here so you can see it. And you can capture everything below you, which is what you're seeing here. And if you think of this as the north direction here, then this would be east over here. And we're going to south direction here. So you kind of have to think inside out when you look at my work. Everything below you and everything above you. So that's the thing that has kept me very involved with perspective and trying to figure. This takes a 6-point, as I said, and it's an interesting study because it allows you to do a lot of really cool stuff. We're going to just be starting. We're going to use a 2-point perspective today. I'm going to show you how I go about doing that. And I always use a grid system, which is different. I think I started doing this when I was teaching middle school and high school students in Sheridan, Wyoming and Klamath Falls, Oregon. And so now that we're going to get this on the internet, maybe some of those old students will come and look at this. But anyway, let me just show you what I use this grid system, and what it amounts to is, I'm going to start it back in about here for 1 point and the other point way over here. Okay, so we can get a pretty good size drawing out of that. The grid system for 2-point perspective is lines that radiate out from this point, and they'd run all the way across the canvas in straight lines all the way to the edge like this. So that'd be one set of lines. And another set of lines, maybe you'll just switch to green, go from this point here and radiate out across the picture or the piece of paper. So that's another set of lines that would be based mostly for cubical worlds. Let me get one line going straight up in the air there. And then there's one more set of lines that go to that run up and down. Maybe I can use purple for that, or orange. I'll use orange for that because it doesn't show up too much. So there'd be another set of lines that just run straight up and down. And that's the system. If you actually study the Renaissance, where this was all invented, that's the basic system that they use all the time. Is 3 sets of lines. One set of lines for cubes go here, another one goes there, and another one runs straight up and down. So when we draw in that space, I'm going to start by drawing just a few cubes, because this really was designed for cubes and how to make a cube look like it has more dimension in space. And so you start with one of these orange lines, or these up and down lines, and start with an edge like that. And then you see that when you use the grid lines, you don't have to be on the lines. They just show you the directions that you have to keep in mind. So I could start in between here, project this toward that point, And this upper, I'm going to go up a little higher so I'm not right on the line, and project it towards that point also. So that's one set of lines. Let's just call this number, I'm going to call this number 1 over here, vanishing point number 2 over here. So that will keep us, so these would all be aiming toward number 2s. Okay? And then we need this is a plane of a cube. And then I'm going to cut it off with a number, well, we'll call these number 3s that are going up and down. Any of the lines that are going up and down like that. So we need another number 3 there and number 3 there. That's one side of a cube. Now let's find these points right there and aim toward number 1. If you aim toward number 1 off of all of these 3 points, you'll end up with the sides of the cube. Now we need another number 3 in the back here to cut this off. Okay? And we've got, like, that's a 3. And we need another number 2 from this corner, which is a given corner. You don't want to start over here because you won't hit your edge. But you have to aim toward number 2. So we'll aim across there toward number 2. There's a basic cube, the outside of a cube. With any of the perspective systems, you can be on an inside scene or an outside. This is sort of so far outside. There's nothing inside about this as far as being inside of a room or something. We are going to jump over there, however. But we're going to leave this little cube in the room anyway. But I'm going to, I'll leave those numbers on there. It kind of helps you keep straight. When you draw, and this, you could make this very complicated. It could be an outside scene of a lot of buildings. This could turn, let me just show you how. If you put an X across here, like that, and you project straight up with a number 3 line, somewhere up here is where the top of that roof could connect with. Wherever you connect this side, it comes off of that to the opposite side. So you see, you could really be and now this will project toward a number 2. And this will copy this edge here, over here, just copy the same angle. You'll be very close to it. And you'd end up with a little house. So that's sort of the house, but we're not doing a house today. We're going to do the inside of a room. So I want to just erase that, but I wanted to just give you a hint that this goes in all kinds of directions to make this be interesting. I mean, people have been playing with perspective since the 15th century. And one of the very important parts of it is that they used to actually think it was so important, and I still do, that all architects and all artists, if you really went to an art school or a school of any kind, you learned perspective. Even in the schools today, it's a teachable thing. And there's a lot of the arts that aren't very teachable, but perspective is very teachable. And that's why I think it's also how things really look. If you take photographs of the world and you analyze the photographs of a building or whatever, you'll see these different systems of perspective pop right out in them. So it's partly part of the real world. So, okay, now let's switch over. We're going to leave this cube here, and we'll use it within our room, but we're going to make this turn into a room. And the first thing you have to do is draw the back corner of a room. So, and that's a number 3 line. So I'm going to go from here, straight up and down, go a little bit, let's see, I won't go quite, I'm going to keep it above this for a good reason. And so that's the back corner of a room. So now we have to kind of reverse the perspective, still use the number 1, but now the number 1 is going to go away from, instead of towards the point, it's going away from the point. In the same way, the bottom of this wall is going to aim toward number 1, but it's moving away from number 1 to get inside. All right, so that would be one wall within your room. Another wall is going to be doing in the reverse. So it's going to work toward 2, but go away from 2. And it'll be aiming out this way. And so will this one. All right. So it's going to be aiming out this way. It goes behind this cube, pops out here somewhere. All right. And this can be, you can use a ruler with this, but I'd rather see you use the ruler for the grid if you want it to be really, really precise. But you can also keep this very loose and do it all freehand. I mean, just like I did so far. Okay, now what do we have when we're looking at this particular drawing? We have, this is a number 3 line. It's running just like these, right? This actually is a number 2, and it aims the same way that this one does over here. This is a number 2 here. This is a number 1 and a number 1. They're both aiming back here, just like the table was aiming back toward this point. So now we have a wall here. This is also a wall. This is a floor, and this is the ceiling up here. So we have 3 different planes that are showing up in this. So now it's a matter of playing with this stuff. Let's see how we can play with this and turn it into a much more real place. I'm going to do just a little bit of erasing so that we don't get too cluttery here. Oh, okay, better leave that number 1 over here so we know it's a number 1. If this is part of that room, it's kind of floating up in the air. And what I would do with it is extend this number 3 down to at least to the edge of the floor there, and then cut it across and just reconstruct it a little bit. That means this line has to come down. I'm going to erase this in here, get rid of all of that. Okay, now we got to extend this across toward number 2. We're just trying to get what we drew to fit onto the floor, and it was floating above the floor before. So whatever we're going to make out of that, it's now at least sitting on the floor like it's supposed to. All right. Now let's play a little bit with I'm gonna put a door right over on this side. I'm going to on this wall right here. So whenever you put a door or a window onto the different sides of walls and floors and ceilings, they have to look like they belong there, right? The how you get them to look like they belong there is look at what the shape is doing and make sure the window and the door do that same design shape. It's a miniaturized version of the wall. So if you're going to put a door over here, I'm going to put it just beyond the vanishing point here a little bit. So I'm going to cut a hole in that wall and make this be a door. Now this is the number 2. It's aiming toward that point just like the top wall would be. And these are up and down lines. So they just run straight up and down like the number 3 lines. Okay, these are both number 3s. And so now you have a door on that wall. If you were to put a window above this table, okay, you should probably, most windows and doors line up on the top. So you want to project this, lightly aim it across here, and then figure out, okay, where do you want it centered, or do you want 2? I'm going to actually turn this into 2 windows. I'll have one here above the table, and it'll stop about there. And I'm going to cut it off up and down. And then the bottom and the top of the windows are aiming toward number 2, parallel to, they're running straight from the top of the door, which usually they do. And then the bottom of the window cuts across like this. And you get a number 2 there that's also aiming over there. Let's add one more window. I'm going to keep this lined up with this one. It comes across like this. It's a little bit smaller in length. There's very precise ways to do this where everything is very exact or organized so that the windows become exactly what they should become. I can show you that in a more complicated perspective system. This bottom of the window projects across. Aim it toward number 2 over here, and that would be the edge of the window. Okay, so now we got a door, we got 2 windows. While we're doing these windows, let me just erase just a little bit here, get rid of the west direction, and have these showing up a little bit better. I don't want to make the vanishing point disappear yet. When I do this, you will have access to grids, so you could actually start with the grid and then put a clear sheet of paper over the top of it, and you can do your drawing because you can see through that. You can see the grid underneath the paper. It helps you keep it all organized too, so you can do it in that fashion also if you don't want to lightly draw the grid out yourself, because it takes a little bit of time to draw the grid out. But I always like people to know where the systems come from, not just copy what some teacher hands you. I want you to know how to draw it and construct it yourself. So I'm very precise about that kind of stuff. So anyway, now we have, and another little point is, if you're going to draw along with me step by step, and make sure that you know where the pause button is. Push the pause button every now and then, so because I've done this quite a few times, and I might be faster than you do it, and you just want to pause it and catch up to me, then hit the pause again, and then I'll start blabbering at you again, okay? Yeah, so that's good. Okay, let's just go back to these windows a little bit and do a little bit more. Now we have a vanishing point back here for any of the depth would go toward this vanishing point. So the depth is also going to show up in this window. If you were going to try and find where this would be, these would aim back toward this point, and so would this. And this would be the up and down lines. It would go like that. That would be the, and because this is a little, you know, I forgot to tell you, but I like to think of these vanishing points as where your eye is located, and another eye over here where it's located. So anything down below your eye, you're going to see the top of, like you're seeing the top of this cube or this table, if we turn it into a table. And anything above the eyes, you're going to be looking up under. So you're going to see a little bit of underneath this because your eyes are in a position within this drawing to show that. So you're going to see the top, and you're going to see the bottom of that window. And you're also going to see this side of it. You're not going to be able to see this side the way that wall is running. It just doesn't allow you to see this other side. So one more back here. Let's back up to this one. It aims toward here. Both of these are parallel to these lines and parallel to these two. So they're going to number 1 line. And then we want number 2 lines on the bottom here. They should be, actually, if you think about it, should project from there too. So they should, it all should fit together. And then this runs straight up and down, and you'll see a little bit of the bottom shelf of the window also there. So that's 2 windows that have depth, and you can see the thickness of this wall when you're actually seeing that part, you know. Okay, and then same thing with the door. We have to figure out, what are we going to see on the door? Well, this kind of says aim down toward this point, aim up toward this point, toward that vanishing point. These are still number 1 lines that are aiming up here. And then cut it. And if you want to be accurate, really accurate, project these lines. You'll know right where that should be, what you should see in that coming across. That will give you a given corner, so you know where this line goes, and that would be where that connects with that. So once you put one window in, it sort of dictates the whole composition. I remember one time when I was drawing on the sphere, and I started with like the inside of a cathedral. And I saw one corner, did one corner in the piece, and I got to thinking, you know, I have dictated everything that's going to happen in this whole piece by that first corner that I put in, because it can only be a certain way if I'm actually looking at this from a particular place within that building. And it can't, once you start, it freezes everything. But you have to draw it all to figure out what the rest of that space really is going to look like. See, so it makes it really interesting. Once this little line here, once this gets constructed like that, to make this make sense, this floor actually comes out and runs by, and it could be there's a little porch or maybe a step down porch out here. So I might even add another line. So you'd come along, step down there, and if you played around, you maybe could have the sidewalk running off toward that vanishing point or whatever, you know. But so now let's just let's play a little bit with. I'm gonna have some kind of a ceiling and a different type of floor in this too. But maybe we better finish up the windows. A couple windows over on this side. We already have a door here, so we probably don't need another door over here, unless it's going, it could be, let's make it be a big door. As you can see, I'm making this up as I go along. So let's make this be a big door over here. We're going to cut a hole in the wall, and you cut a hole in the wall. Say you wanted an addition back there, and this is how it's really nice. An architect or a carpenter has to go to all the work to tear a wall out. It isn't very hard for us to tear a wall out. Maybe that's why architects change their mind too much, and it makes the carpenters, drives them nuts, you know. Okay, so let's cut a hole in this wall. This line is still aiming. It's aiming back toward number 1. These are all number 1s. This is a 1 up here. This is still number 1 there. Let's have it be a step up. So we'll cut a hole in this. This also aims toward number 1. And we're just cutting a hole in that wall. Okay? And now, if this is a hole and we've taken that piece out of there, there's going to be a line aiming toward number 2 back here. So it's going to go back in space like this, and it can go any distance you want it to go. This aims toward number 2 also. All right? See how all of a sudden now we've opened up that whole side, and you made your house a lot bigger in a hurry. It makes it really cool. So I'm going to say, okay, we're going to stop it though right here. So I need a number 3 line running back here. That's where it's going to stop. And then this guy goes to number 1, just like these two do. It's and you can see the more you're down here, the more of an odd angle it is. As it comes up, it straightens out, and almost on the eye level across here, it would be a straight line. So over here, it's almost a straight line too. It would still be aiming toward number 1 back here. Okay, so we've got that, and we're actually running off the edge of the page. I'm going to just draw where the edge of the page probably would be, right down through here somewhere. That's probably the edge of the page. And the edge of the page should be over here at this point. If you go beyond the vanishing points, you get kind of into weird land, and it starts to the perspective reverses slightly, and it looks odd. But later you'll see why that's the case and why it's sort of telling you, I want to have another vanishing point to go to. So you start to get into curved line perspective, a lot of really cool stuff when you want to expand and make this be almost a panoramic that keeps going and going and going, okay? So now we've got this extra room in here, and we have a step up, and this would be a great place for a stairway. That you might want to do that with your piece, or it could just be that you can actually just step up and go into this next room. This next room now could have windows. Let me extend what's going on here, it actually would jog out a little bit. So it'd be a little different windows back in here. I'm going to just put one about right there on that wall, just to show you what that could look like. And then I'm going to put a door back on this wall so you can actually enter another. And so let's remember that these are number 2 lines. 2 lines, just like these are. This is, that is. That's all going the same direction. And the rule in perspective is all parallel lines. When you look at a line, if it's parallel to something else, it always is going to the same vanishing point. If it's another set of lines in the cube, and there should be 3 sets of lines in every cube. There's lines that go north, south, there's lines that go east, west, and there's lines that go up and down in a room. So that's your 3 sets. That's what we're playing with right here. So I'm going to put a little door back here. All right. If you have enough space, you can put a little detail for the thickness again, like we did here. Be a little thickness on the top of that. This one, the thickness would be aiming back in space toward here, and then an up and down line back here, and another one here slightly showing just a little bit of the top of that. So that would be the door on that wall. I'm going to get rid of a little bit more here. Remember, pause whenever you get lost for a bit, catch up. And if you know, on the first couple times, if you just even get close to this, that's doing pretty well, you know. That's pretty cool. Now, let's see, what else can we do? I always like the idea that to learn this, to think of this as a checkerboard pattern floor. If you aim toward the number 2 lines and come across here like this, and like I say, there's a very precise way to do this, but for this first one, I think it's fine just to sort of randomly draw these lines. Don't worry about spacing, and run them aiming toward here. All of these lines will make the floor really look cool. And then if you want checkerboard pattern, then you have to aim toward this one. Just like this number 1 lines here, this has to run aiming up there, and it would gradually spread out like so as it comes across. And if, like I said before, if you look at a photograph, you'll notice this system actually is the same. It's the way it actually works. See how all of a sudden that looks like you could walk right in on this floor and jump up above there. And I remember when I was in high school, that was what turned me on to getting into the arts, is all of a sudden you could make a world that you could actually enter with your mind and create all of this kind of stuff. And that's a really neat thing to be able to do. The ceiling, let's do a little bit with the ceiling. I'm going to put, let's see, maybe for now I'll just do ceilings that run. This is aiming toward number 2 over here. We'll just run lines like this, and that'll help make the ceiling look like it's coming across to you. Okay? And one of the things that's interesting is, let's just cut a hole in the floor here while we're at it. I'm going to just chop a hole right here. I don't know where this is going, but later you can figure out, okay, I think I'm going to have this be a stairway that goes down to a cellar. So now I'm going to erase all of this floor stuff. And if you have a hole running in the floor like that, you've got to have an up and down line here. If you wanted it to just be a big drop off, you go all the way down. If you want it to be just a stairway, let's just run it to about right there. And then we could turn this into stairs. So this would be the up and down, like so. This is all aiming toward number 1. And then this is aiming toward number 2. This is aiming toward number 1. Aiming straight up and down again. Aiming toward number 1 over here. This is aiming toward number 2. And you can see, you can get, all of a sudden you can go right down into that stairway. it looks like I'm getting close to the end of it there. So, but I mean, I'm running out of space. You can't see what I'm doing down here. So no sense drawing anymore. So anyway, but that's the beginning for a good drawing on perspective. And you can see that you can really do some amazing, cool stuff with this. And, this is the interior. You could do all of this kind of stuff and build a whole, let me make a quick, I just want to get this to be a table. Like so. Erase some of this. And now we have a little table in there, and we just notched it out, aiming toward the same points, and you end up with some thickness there of legs and stuff. Pretty heavy duty table, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you paused enough to where you can catch up and do something, and then just add any kind of furniture you want in there. People, it's always fun to add a few people in here just to make it become a little more alive. A lot of my people, I start with just silhouettes just to get the sense of them and see where it takes you. Okay? Thank you for watching and listening and learning. All right? You have a very good day. Take care. Bye-bye.